Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more interesting stories like these. Now, let's get into today's story video.
TIFU by cheating on my so and karma came fast. This occurred almost 10 years ago, and it caused us to part up. Before I go any further, I want to state unequivocally that I am well aware of how heinous and terrible infidelity is. I was young at the time and committed a mistake for which I paid instantly. This is my tale. So one night, my roommate, 21 at the time, brought me to the beach to visit a number of folks we knew in high school but hadn't seen since graduation. We'd been drinking and shooting shots all night at the pub. When the pub shuts, my roommate and the rest of our party decided to get coolers from our friend's hotel and go to the ocean to conclude the night with a couple more drinks and listen to the waves. The waves seemed to be coming from nowhere. This is when things began to change. We had been discussing going in the sea, but this is not a good idea at night, particularly when you don't know the tidal schedule, and we were completely. When one of the females we were with runs by me, I was the first to start going that direction, dropping my clothing down to my underwear. When I turn around, everyone is nude. I confess that I had not even thought how my partner might have felt about this at this time, and I also went undressed. We had been swimming for around 30 minutes when everyone began to separate. This was at low tide, so you could walk a long distance away from the coast and still be waist deep. I had walked up to a sandbar with this girl I had known for years. We hadn't noticed how far we'd gotten away from the group or the coast. This is the point at which I cheated. I heard my roommate yelling our names at the top of his lungs around halfway through the act. We were the last ones left on the island, and the water was rising. We were barely a few feet away from the sandbar when I observed what seemed to be fireflies in the water. I immediately understood that they were jellyfish, and they were all over the place. We both attempted to rush through, but they just kept coming. We could see at least 50 to 75 of them. I was surprised to feel a searing pain over the back of both knees. I grabbed my friend's wrist and began to drag her as I tried to flee since stuff had become nasty. I committed the one mistake that every beachgoer knows not to make. I thought we needed to get out of there as soon as possible, and that climbing the cliffs would assist. My toe was instantly slashed open to the bone by a clam, so I didn't even get a single foot planted. Now I'm nude, dripping blood, and we've both been stung all over. When I was doubled over in anguish shooting through my penis and balls, we headed back towards the shore. I believed I'd been bitten, but it turned out that a jellyfish had wrapped around my genitals. I'd never experienced such agony before. When we arrived to the beach, we were mobbed by all of our friends who had heard us screaming and had called the police because they feared we had seen a shark. It's nearly 5 a.m. now, and the experience has thoroughly woken me up. The cops were unfazed by the scenario, and one of them volunteered to escort us back to the hotel. Fast forward to later that morning, when my roommate drove us home. When we came home, I began assessing my injuries. I obviously required stitches, but I chose not to get them since I didn't have insurance at the time. My penis, on the other hand, was hideous. I couldn't believe it had been harmed by this jellyfish. It was bloated, painful, and had a strange form. I took a handful of ibuprofen in a shower before falling asleep for the rest of the day until the evening, when I awoke to find my girlfriend crawling in bed with me. My heart skipped a beat. She was aware that I had gone out the night before, and my roommate had briefed her about my difficult night, ignoring the fact that I had betrayed her. She was only there for about 10 minutes before I broke down and confessed, but I didn't tell her about the cut or the jellyfish. She never looked at me, never sobbed, and never said anything. I saw her at a bar around 4 years ago. She approached me and asked if we could speak for a few minutes. She told me she was never angry with me and that after a while she was simply glad I was honest. After the fact she noted, "Well, I've got something more to tell you about that night that you're going to adore," I said. She absolutely enjoyed hearing the remainder of the happenings from that night. We had a good chuckle over it. I paid her bill and then departed. Since then, we haven't talked. Story 2. Is my wife cheating on me with one of her younger male coworkers, or am I overreacting? I, male 47, learned about a year ago that my wife, female 48, of 24 years had been with a younger male colleague of hers. Before I got any evidence, I checked her Google search history and discovered that she had done a lot of research on him. She was clearly smitten with him and unwillingly confirmed it when I questioned her. But not gladly. I had to show her the evidence before she would confess to anything. Since then, this has become a major issue. She denies everything till the last end and now seems to be capable of being honest with me. I am not an angel, and I have given her countless reasons to mistrust me over our marriage. But I've never cheated on her, and it's never even been a consideration, which is one of the reasons I've been in trouble over the years. I quit drinking because it was usually me drinking and driving or arguing or doing foolish things due to drinking and partying too much. I always assumed it would be me who messed things up, and I never anticipated it would be my wife. But, around 5 years ago, just after my father died, she complained that I was distant and lonely. I tried to be more present, but she felt I wasn't living in the moment while we were together. Not long after that, she began to take a more active position at work and swiftly rose up the ranks. As it turns out, the majority of the individuals she managed back then, and today, are men. My wife is beautiful and has always been naturally flirtatious, smiles a lot, which I like, but it was evident to me now that she was going out of her way to attract the attention of other guys. Other discoveries in the last 5 years have set us back and put our faith in each other to the test, but there was one important one I learned just before the first infatuation. My wife was in Paris with her pals when my doorbell rang. There was a guy standing there with an envelope, which he gave to me and stated, "We've been served." My wife had a credit card debt of over $100,000 at the time, which I found. She said that there had been a misunderstanding and that she would take care of it. I think I wanted to trust her and eventually stopped asking about it. 6 years later, I realized she had consolidated all of the debt and had been paying it off with her retirement and our combined income for the last 6 years without my knowledge. She handles the bills, and I never questioned why money was tight when we both made decent money. When I uncovered all of the proof, she was just 2 months away from having it paid off. I began checking through her closet, her vehicle, and practically everything. Everywhere I looked, I found new clothing, shoes, lingerie, and so on. The majority of the items in the bag still had price tags on them. This is all pricey things, some from 2 to 3 years ago and others from the previous week. I also found the papers for the consolidation. I suppose he's been hiding in plain sight the whole time. For who knows how long, she had been playing me for a. I questioned her and got no meaningful answers, and she denied having a problem with shopping. She also stated she couldn't recall where she got all of the debt. I contacted credit card companies to obtain statements dating back to that time period to determine what it was for, but I was unable to obtain them, most likely because these companies were unwilling to assist me because my wife hired a consolidation company to argue with them to pay them the minimum, roughly half of what was owed, or they would receive nothing because she would be forced to file for bankruptcy. As a result, I began spying on her in whatever way I could. What I discovered was surprising. I bought a key-shaped recording device and kept it in her handbag every day. It wasn't long until I had an entirely new perspective on my wife, what she was doing, and what she really thought of me. When she wasn't around, I was heartbroken by what she said about me to her friends and colleagues. All of my most ominous ideas were coming true. The recording quality wasn't always the finest, and as fate would have it, every time I thought I had good proof on her, there was movement or the phrase that ruined the recording. However, there was still enough information to continue prying by whatever means required. We began seeing a marital counselor, but that didn't last long since the counselor questioned my wife for not being open and honest. The counselor was an aged, experienced woman who could tell she wasn't providing comprehensive and honest replies. I proposed that I stop going so she could continue to seek therapy, and that without me present, she would be more likely to open up and be honest with the counselor. This lasted just one meeting before she dropped out completely. So, when I confronted her about her improper behavior with her colleague for the first time, she swore not to do it again and maintained they were just friends and nothing had occurred. We returned to our lives, but I realized that we were no longer the same individuals. Needless to say, has been scarce to non-existent during the last 5 years. She would deny down all of my advances, and every time I touched her, she would say all I wanted from was, so we soon stopped being intimate. I decided to start spying on her again. And we immediately found that she continued just where she left off, adding a few more employees and old acquaintances to her list of males with whom she improperly spoke and texted. I uncovered a text message between her and a younger employee last week, and it didn't hold back. When this colleague departed to work for another firm, he gave her a photo of his workspace. "Looks like the desk needs some breaking in," she said, to which he answered, "Maybe we need a client meeting?" "I had a dream last night that requires your attention," she began, to which he answered, "Unfinished business?" "Yes," she said. "You were fantastic. I'm left wanting more because you left me wanting more." All of this occurred pretty early in the morning. I read this on her phone while she was in the bathroom and had to quickly collect myself and leave so I didn't blow up. All day, I wondered whether this was all a misunderstanding. I came to the decision that given the last 5 years and all I've learned about her, the falsehoods she's been caught in, the things she won't tell me or claims she simply doesn't remember, I've been a fool. So I confronted her with what I had discovered, and she replied it was all just chatter. She said she recognizes it's improper, But it's just for fun and she didn't see anything wrong with it. She hesitantly apologized and said she would understand if I chose to leave her. I'd want to know if I'm being lied to again, and whether a 48-year-old lady can have improper conversations with guys in her life without having with them.